Our differences, not our similarities, are what make this country so great. Today, our country is more diverse than it's ever been. Household growth over the next few years will only increase that diversity. And that segment of the market is largely underserved. It is time that we as an industry not only embrace it, celebrate it, but we must also invest in it. We at Altera Home Loans don't pretend to have all the answers. However, we recognize when we're good at something. Serving the underserved markets on the path to home ownership and building wealth through that home ownership is something we take great pride in. We were built for this moment. We were built to work with you.
Hi, my name is Angelica Ojeda, and I am a part of NAHREP here in San Ramon Valley.
Hi, I'm Alex Wesso with E3 Realty and Loans over here in the Bay Area.
Hello, my name is Victor Reyes with Keller Williams Realty.
Hi, Zulia Morales, State Farm Insurance.
Hi, I'm Christina Pineda. I am the Membership Director for NAHREP San Ramon Valley, and I would love for you to also join our wonderful team.
Can't wait to see you at our next event.
Come and check out our events and join our chapter.
I invite you guys to join us at our next event because we have amazing things happening with this chapter and you don't want to miss out. Follow us on Facebook.
Welcome everybody. My name is Michael Bardales. I am the president for the NAHREP East Bay chapter, San Ramon Valley. And I'm here with our three panelists, Ben Rojas, our vice president of the NAHREP chapter. We have Roger Lopez, our member and local realtor with Compass. And we have our president of the Silicon Valley chapter, Richard Ozuna. And you guys are actually here at our first pan con cafecito conversation. We got some pan here. We got here.
Love it.
You guys, NAHREP's 2019 State of the Hispanic Homebuyer Report. We're going to break it down into three sections. We're going to talk about the landscape of the Hispanic market. We're going to talk about the challenges that the Hispanic market has. And also we're going to use that data and use it as leverage here in the Bay Area for the Hispanic market. So before I get into it, I want to introduce all of our panelists. First, I'm going to introduce Mr. Roger Lopez with Compass. Roger, welcome to the panel, and we'd love to hear about you and what you've been up to.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, and thank you for having me. So my name is Roger Lopez. I'm a real estate agent. I'm currently with Compass in the Walnut Creek office. I've been in the real estate industry for 12 years. So I've seen some really interesting cycles. So pretty excited to be here and share with you guys what we're seeing in this report.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here, Roger. As NAHREP, we're big on Hispanics, and I love your ideas about making this more of a Spanish-speaking events as well, and really opening up into that market. So thank you for your contribution today, and all that other stuff. Mr. Ben Rojas, we're going to welcome him as well. He's with Vanguard Properties and our current 2020 vice chair. So Ben, you mind telling the audience who you are and what you're about?
Yeah, my name's Ben. I've been a realtor. I started on the lending side in 2002. And this is my third cycle of seeing some interesting things happen on Earth. And so I'm glad that we have NAHREP right here to give us some reports that we can use as some business intelligence to see what the next move is. So I'm happy to be covering these topics today.
Awesome. Yeah, and then we have our seasoned NAHREP professional here, Mr. Richard Ozuna. He's actually the president for our Silicon Valley chapter. The good thing about being in the Bay Area, we have some chapters that we love to collaborate with, and I met Richard a few months back. Very passionate about our community and very passionate about NAHREP. So Richard, tell everyone who you are and what you're about.
Thank you, Michael. Number one, I want to show you guys a little bit of gratitude for inviting me on to collaborate with you. I've been in the business since 2002. I've started from the ground up, basically, where, I could probably bring it on this call, but it's a big old telephone book like this where you had to call and dial for dollars, right? But, since then, I've come a long way from humble beginnings and worked with most of the major banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, PNC Bank, Chase Bank. And, you know, I've been privileged to make the top 250 list of NAHREP 2 years in a row. My best year was 52 million, so I was pretty excited about that. And now I am the incoming president. You'll be swearing me in when we get to that event. And yep, we'll raise our hand, and for sure. And I was last year's vice president. I started off as a membership director. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about my background. I'm passionate about Latino issues and making sure that we can change the narrative that's out there. And we tell our own story. So that's why I'm here with you guys today.
Thank you for being here. And yeah, and myself, I'm Michael Bardales. I'm a Bay Area native. I started in real estate in 2004 as a lender. So I've been through the first crash. 16 years later now, I'm a realtor. So I've been doing that for about 8 years now, and I'm a team leader for East Bay Group. But I'm super excited to be the president this year. We have a solid board of directors, you guys. I mean, we have Ben Rojas, we have Alex Huezo, Victor Reyes, Grace Davis. And we have a solid board that really wants to give you guys these great events. We know that you guys have a lot of options when it comes to Zoom calls, especially when it's live, especially when it's recorded. So we promise to give you guys some great content. So let's just get into it, you guys. Let's get into the conversation with these gentlemen. So we know Latinos are buying, but at what scale, right? And how do we identify these challenges? That's the biggest question I think we have as well. How do we identify the challenges within our culture and within our community as well? And how do we provide these solutions? I mean, we don't want to talk about challenges without providing solutions as well. So here's a few facts. We know that, one, the Latinos are the ones that pulled the country out of the first recession we had, right? We know that we account for right now 51.6% of home ownership growth. The housing GDP is actually 16.3%. Of 16.3%, Latinos actually represent 12% of that. So that's a huge number right there. And I think that's something to be very proud of. I was at the last NAHREP, and I think they said the Latino GDP in America is bigger than some countries' GDP as a whole. So that's pretty big, you guys. It's really big. So how do we accomplish this? And where are the Latinos buying and things of that nature? So I'm going to bring in our expert, Roger Lopez, to kind of give us a little bit of information in regards to the Latino housing market.
Sure. So when you're talking about who the Hispanic population is in terms of real estate, right? So point number one I see in the report is it says the Hispanic account for 40.4% of all new household formation over the last 10 years. So by looking at these reports and just seeing what I see outside, like when I'm holding open houses, I do see an increase of Latinos showing up to open houses and asking questions and not being afraid to just get into that conversation, right? That's something we didn't have that much a few years ago. Number two, we have the highest labor force participation. There's no question about it, 66.8%. So we're hardworking people.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I want to chime in on that a little bit. Latino labor force. I mean, like, Ben, talk a little bit about that. I mean, like Roger says, like, we're hard workers. I think we find opportunity even when the market's down. You know, we do whatever it takes to get it. So talk a little bit about this labor force here in the Bay Area, Ben.
So we've got, Latinos are actually an interesting portion of the labor force in general for the Hispanic labor force. So there's an interesting stat that we're going to attach a link to, but you can see in the NAHREP Latino or Hispanic report, I think we made up something like 66% of all drywall hangers in the country, which is insane. We made up a huge percentage of construction workers. We do a lot of labor. So a lot of the manual labor that is done, especially in construction, is done by Hispanics. Right. And it's interesting to see that. And now we're seeing those higher, because of the housing crunch, we're seeing those salaries and those wages go up. So we're seeing that these buyers are coming out with labor intensive jobs, and those are becoming our new home buyers. So it's interesting to watch that market.
Right. And then Roger, you're about to jump into the income portion of things. So what does the income look like for Latinos now?
Yeah, so to see, it has increased to an average nationwide of 51,000. Also, we've seen a jump in credit score. We were at 678, we're at 684. We're still a little bit below the average, but it's a decent credit score. It's good enough to buy a house and get good terms. All what this means is that we're being wiser in managing our finances. We are not getting in debt that much. We're not getting behind. We are more aware of what's going on and know what to do and what not to do, right? Also age bracket. 1 in 3 Latinos are 18 years old or younger. or average age, sorry, it's 29.5 years old. At this age, we're just getting into the home buying ages, right? So, fairly enough, that's my experience. I closed 60 transactions last year. I will say probably like 70% of those were between the ages of 30 to 40.
And we learned a new word today, right? Most people call them millennials, but in this round, what do we call them now, Roger?
What's that?
What do we call them? The Hispanic millennials. What's the name for them?
Man, I forgot the name. What was it again?
It was Hispanios, man.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, also something I wanted to share. This was just last week. We're talking about ages and people being wiser and managing their stuff. Last week I closed a deal. It was a buyer. She's a nurse. She's 24 years old. She's awesome. She's working hard right now with what's going on, and she's bought her first house. So that was great. That was great helping her. Last month I had a 22-year-old guy buying her first house in Antioch. So, and he's already in touch with me and my lenders. His goal is to buy an investment property in the next 2 or 3 years. So that's awesome.
No, and that's really good. I think a lot, us being that, we have these younger generation, like you said, I think that's probably a reason why the older generation is doing better, because there's interpretation. I think one of our board of director person said, I went with my mom to interpret everything, to the documentation and things of that nature. So I think we're having more access to credit knowledge, more access to financial knowledge that we're now passing on to the older generation. I think that's why you're seeing better credit scores and better income as well. But Roger, right now, besides, I know you had mentioned that the millennials are the home buyers. What else are you seeing in regards to who else are the home buyers out there?
So some stats is the average age, like we were saying before, is 40 years old for people buying their first house. Mostly of them are U.S. born. Their median income, it says, is $68,000, and most of them live in multi-generational households. It's something we see all the time. I see parents buying with their sons, brother and sister buying their first house, and then their plan is to get profits and just buy their own property in a few years. And what I see, and also that's pretty interesting, is that for Latinos that reach out to me, their goal, well, not for all of them, but most of them want to find a duplex or a house with an ADU where they can just buy with someone else and just share that cost of buying a house, get in there, stop paying rent, and become homeowners, right? And just to end my piece here, the average down payment was 3.5%, most likely to use FHA loans, which is the most popular loans for first-time home buyers, right?
Yeah. I think the mindset, and Phil, I think you guys chime in on this, the mindset of Latinos, no matter what country you come from, I think the last thing we're worried about is an interest rate. We don't sit there and say, hey, we want to buy a house and we hope we have 3.5% down with closing costs or things of that nature. Owning a home in America is the dream. That's the goal. That's whatever it takes. And I've seen that before. I think a lot of us get caught up like, oh, we don't want to buy this house because we got quoted a 4.25. Where for us, a house to us is memories, it's lifestyle, it's growth, it's things of that nature. What do you guys feel about that? Do you feel like our mindset when it comes to like rates and that it's not as sensitive as most Americans?
Well, I think so. Just to chime in. So as we find, like I was looking at the data, that multi-generational home buying is a very big factor in Hispanic home choice. It's absolutely true. Like that's one of the first things that you want is, as a Hispanic home buyer, you're looking at where can I have a space for, my parents, because I want to take care of them as they get older. Where can I have a space for my little brother, my cousin? Like we have a very tight-knit community and a very tight-knit family. So as those houses, and even as home builders start building new house types, I think we're going to start seeing that shift where, ADUs are a lot easier to build now. Maybe home buyers, you'll start seeing a home already come with an ADU straight from Pulte or straight from KB Homes. So it's interesting how not only our home choices are changing kind of the demographics, but even we're going to start seeing home buyers shift to us because we're such a powerful force in the home buying space.
Well, let's talk to our lender on the panel, Mr. Richard over here. You're in and out quoting rates. I mean, have you seen a difference in regards to, a rate going up and making it, some of my clients sometimes like, whoa, the rate went up. I don't know if I want to buy anymore. But in regards to the Hispanic community, when a rate goes up by an 1/8 or a 1/4, they still qualify. Do you feel like that's something that deters them away from buying?
That's kind of an interesting question. My experience, I have Latinos that are, depending on where they are, if they're, and their education levels, right? So I'm dealing with a savvy Hispanic first generation Latina right now, and she's like determined that she wants a 3% interest rate, and she's willing to pay 3 points, but she's very knowledgeable and educated, probably because her son's a realtor, but they're not going to nitpick you most of the time on price. I mean, I think Latinos really don't like to haggle all that much with the first generation. Now, the second generation, I think it's a different animal. They're way more savvy. They're way more educated. They're more inclined to shop around, and they're down to willing deal. You know what I mean? And I think that there's nothing wrong with to make sure that you're not being overcharged, because it's very easy if you're a misinformed consumer and not asking around. And that's why I think it's so important to be working with people that you trust and have been referred to you, and maybe that somebody in their family has already done business with. So I don't think there's as price sensitive, but I think it all has to do with the price point too. If you're buying $1 million house versus a $200,000 house, interest rate probably isn't going to be that much of an issue, because the payment is like a couple dollar difference. But if you go to the $1 million price point, an interest rate between 3.5 and 3 is a completely different conversation. You're talking $600-700 difference in payment.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I mean, I think it really does matter being to identify your consumer and your audience that is in front of you when you have this opportunity to have this conversation when it comes to mortgage.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thank you for that, Roger. Really appreciate the statistics. Really appreciate the answers in regards to that. So let's move on to Ben.
Good job, Roger.
Let's get into the challenges. I would there's a lot of positive things about this report. There's a lot of things that show us that we're ranked #1 and we're doing these things, but also there's challenges, that's what it is, but let's not talk about challenges without solutions too, right, Ben?
Mm-hmm.
Let us know
absolutely.
the challenges and some of the opportunities within the Hispanic community right now.
Right. So I'll leave the opportunities to Richard right here on the screen below me. But in terms of the opportunities or the challenges, that's what I'm going to cover in my section. And it wasn't anything that the Hispanic report uncovered that is completely out of something that's unexpected or out of what we would expect already. What NAHREP did is they conducted a survey of the top 250 real estate professionals from last year, from 2018. And they found that one of the biggest issues was that half of the transactions were conducted entirely in Spanish. And although that isn't a challenge for us, being that many of us are bilingual, what it did is it presents a challenge for the home buyer. Many of the documents are not completely translatable. Some of the words don't translate equally into different languages. And just the terms, nothing is provided completely and entirely in Spanish. So it makes it you have to put trust in the person that is providing you those documents, because a lot of the time you're not going to be able to capture the understanding of that document if it's not in your native language. The second was inventory. As Hispanics grow as a bigger portion of the home buying market, inventory is going to be felt by us even stronger, because as inventory shrinks and we're growing, we're kind of caught in that space where we're feeling the crunch more. And also kind of the regulatory bodies, FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, some of their guidelines were not very conducive to our home buying and our qualifications. 22.7 of agents reported losing at least one deal due to the DACA financing challenges. So FHA denied at least one DACA buyer for those 250 Latino agents. Another thing was that Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae and even FHA, they have challenges in the way that they underwrite our income. So sporadic income like gig economy income, like driving for Uber or Lyft, or babysitting income, or if you have income from a contributing parent, isn't always easy to document or not documentable in a way that the governing bodies will want to see it. So those incomes, although they're part of the household, they're not documented, and so that buyer can't use them to qualify for a higher home or for a home at all. And so those are some of the challenges. And kind of globally or nationally, one of the things that we saw for Latino home buyers is that because Hispanics are concentrated in major city centers and on the coasts of the country, we end up buying much more expensive homes compared to the average US buyer. And also what that means that more of our income is going to be contributed to our mortgage payment, and which leaves less money for reserves, less money for savings, less money for retirement, which also poses different challenges down the line. Now, they do say that purchasing a home or home ownership is one of the keys to building wealth, lifetime wealth. But even still, as more of your money is tied up in your housing payment, it kind of becomes a balance where do you want to really put your savings, or where do you want to or make your bets, right? Are you going to bet that that home is going to take you all the way through to retirement? Or are you going to be an individual who says, no, I'd rather maybe just stock up my 401k and save a little more? So those are definitely some of the challenges that we're seeing in the Hispanic homeownership market.
Yeah, and Roger, in regards to that, you had mentioned like you had the 22-year-old that just purchased last week. You just closed on. What program were they in? How did they get were able to get home ownership at such an early age with challenges that Ben had just spoke about? Sounds like they're doing really well at the moment.
Yeah, so mostly, like Ben was saying, it takes just education, right? So like this particular age, she's been following me and my lender on social media for, she said, like 4 years.
Oh, good.
She was pretty informed on what she needed to do. She reached out to us 2 years ago. She was still in nursing school, and she was getting everything ready. So as soon as she thought it was the right mom, and she came back, she got approved, and she got her keys last week.
That's awesome.
It's all about education. Yeah, just hanging out with the right people.
Yeah, no matter what, I mean, it's good to put a game plan together. Even when I talk to my clients, and I said, even if you're ready now, it's still a process. It's about 30 days to find a house, and it's 30 days of submitting offers, and then it's like a 21-day escrow. And, I like to put that expectation out there. And of course, I want to get them closed in the first month, but just in case, right? And that's fantastic that you prepare them for that and things of that nature. Is there anything else you want to cover, Ben, in regards to the challenges?
Well, that was essentially it. The only thing is that I saw that I may have not have covered is that we do as a whole just have in generally more strained finances. So meaning that our FICO scores are lower. So sometimes we're going to get slightly higher interest rates. I mean, we're not too much behind the national average. For example, our average FICO score is like 684. The national average is 722. So that does mean that we're going to get a slightly higher interest rate in certain cases. Our DTIs are higher. So our debt to income ratios, we're borrowing more. And generally speaking, we're not stuck, but we're usually located in homes in areas that have more expensive households. So we're kind of seeing 3 factors that are kind of straining that home buyer, right? We've got lower FICO scores to begin with. We've got more income that we're contributing to our houses, and we've got higher prices that we've got to compete against. So all those factors make it more challenging than the average person in the U.S. to be able to buy a home.
Yeah, so, Roger, your the average income increased to $51,000. What is $51,000 in the Bay Area? Like you talk about challenges for us. I mean, I was born in the Mission. I live in Oakland, big minority population or whatnot. And it is challenging for anyone that grew up in the Mission to say, hey, I want to buy a flat here. It's challenging right now because, $51,000 is really not going to cut it in the Bay Area. And I think that's what you're going to is that, we're heavily populated here in the Bay Area with Latinos and things of that nature. But these cities are becoming more and more expensive for us as we go along. Mm-hmm. If you're in Silicon Valley, I mean, like San Jose, I mean, like it's like the Mecca for Latinos out there, right? And what are the prices out there in Silicon Valley?
Just to digress a little bit, and I'll take that one up, but let me just answer that question quick. But, we were talking a little bit about the challenges we're having around credit, right? And I think that's kind of like a cultural thing in a way, just because we're taught not to take on debt. And when I see young Latinos come to me, they don't have a credit card. You know what I mean? Or they don't have enough credit. So that's why their credit score is not higher. It's not like they have anything wrong with it. They just don't have enough credit. And no one's really giving them the credit education. They don't understand how to get their score up. They don't understand that by having 3 or 4 trade lines, that actually helps your credit. They don't know that you want to stay away from, department store credit cards and have Visa, MasterCard that you can use anywhere, right? Or a car loan helps you and a house loan helps you, right? So I think there's a big push that we need to do within our community here locally to making sure people understand what credit is and how to play that game.
that makes sense because when I was younger, even still, I won't say who, but within, people that I know, it was bad. Like, hey, you don't owe money, buy it all cash, things of that nature. And then when you're 24 years old and you've been saving all this money, you're not taught the credit part, right? So we learned the 3 C's in lending: credit, capacity, collateral. I have the capacity to pay back because I have a job. I have the collateral because I've saved up, but I have no trade lines. Yeah, so that makes total sense. So,
and to address your question regarding, housing being very expensive, we live in an uber expensive market. The neighborhoods that were undesirable, east side of San Jose, they're $800,000 now. You know what I mean? And there's a big push and there's a big opportunity for agents in those communities to pick up very nice listings, because at the end of the day, it's now the desirable place, right? It's where everyone can afford to buy now, right? So, we see that. But the thing about South Bay people is they don't want to leave the South Bay, so they'll figure out a way. They're going to find out multiple ways to create more income for themselves. And I think depending on where you live in the country, there are people making more money, because employers have to compete for that talent. And so to get that talent, it requires to be paid well, right? Because they know how expensive housing is. So I think the second and third generation Latinos are doing very well. I did a transaction for a Costa Rican lady, and she bought a $3 million house in Portola Valley. You know what I mean? She's pulling down $1 million a year. So Latinos, we got it covered from down here to the top. We're all in between.
Yeah, and it's funny because even though we're in these metro places such as San Jose, Oakland, San Francisco, Roger, you're in Concord, right? I mean, what I love about the Bay Area is that within 30 miles we can find an affordable city. Even though Stockton may sound so far off, technically it's like an hour to San Francisco. And Roger, you're in Concord and things of that nature. And what do you see most of your people still working in? Probably in the bigger cities, even though they're moving to East County and Contra Costa, would you say?
Yeah, so I do have a lot of people. Well, a lot of people call from San Francisco. First option for them is Oakland. Oakland is it's really high right now. It's really hot. So after Oakland, we have people looking in Richmond and San Pablo. Now Richmond and San Pablo, it's hard to find something decent under 500. So now we have people looking into Vallejo or people looking into Pittsburgh or Bay Point. So it's just about looking at options. I have clients looking in Concord. They've been living there for their whole life, and they just can't afford it. So they just buy something and they drive 15 minutes to Bay Point or Pittsburgh. They get a house there, give it a couple of years, get some equity, sell it, and then move to Concord. So it's all about education and just setting up a plan and just sticking to it, right?
They say that cities thrive is plane, trains, and automobiles. Transportation is huge for any city. And I think you talk about Concord, we have a private airfield there that still flies to LA, that still flies to Vegas, right? Even if you're stuck in Richmond, you can take the ferry to San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So it's beautiful to be in the Bay. And it's even what I tell people, you're right, Roger, I live in Oakland. I want to live in Oakland. Yeah, but 700,000 is a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. You know what you can get 700 in Discovery Bay? Do that.
3,200 square feet, gated community.
Yeah. So that's what I love about the Bay Area, that although we get the benefit of having these nice cities that we can kind of come and see, we can still live in these affordable suburbs and still have that Bay Area feel, right? That's why it's called Bay Love. So let's get into that, Richard. We've been talking about the stats in regards to home ownership, some of the challenges, but what are some of the leverages now that we have in regards to just being Latino, Hispanic, Chicano, all that stuff, man?
Well, there's a huge opportunity within the Latino community, and we all know that it all starts with one of the key factors here to building wealth is home ownership, right? So if you look at Latinos as a demographic, one of the, I'll kind of break it down in a 3-point segment, right? So the first opportunity, I think, really is that our population is very young. They call them millennials, right? That's the generation that we're talking about. There's 4.9 million, okay, that we have to make sure we educate and let them know that one of the key foundations to you having a successful life and building wealth for your family and being able to generate generational wealth is you need to buy. You know what I mean? So we have to really do a really good job right now, especially with technology and that opportunity that we have here. Like this platform that we have here is powerful. Even though we're shut down in our houses, we can reach thousands, right? So all of us that are Latinos, we have to pick up new skills, right? So at the end of the day, we might have to get a nice mic like you and a nice camera so that, you know, we don't have shadows in our face when we're speaking. But there is a new shift happening right in front of our eyes because of health concerns with COVID-19. But there's 4.9 million homeowners that are renting right now. And there's no bigger opportunity right now for us to make sure we're getting that education. And we have so many new tools that none of us really have mastered yet that makes it exciting because we're always learning in this industry, right? Second opportunity is there's a shift that most Latino home buyers are not coming from Latin America. Like Latin America has actually, they're staying. They're not coming here anymore, right? So one of the biggest opportunities, you know, locally for us here in the Northern California is that there's a lot of Latinos here. There's a reason why it's called San Jose. It's a reason why it's called San Francisco, right? You know, at the end of the day, we've always been here, right? So depending on, you know, when you're looking at the demographic and trying to understand it, you have to really understand that the first and the second born right now, they're still renting, and there's 4.9 million. Can you imagine 4.9 million? That number is huge to me. The second opportunity is that, you know, because of the high cost that's really affecting the Bay Area, we're having to get creative. Like you said earlier, Michael, you know, people in San Jose, it's craziest thing. They always want to head south. They want to go to Morgan Hill, Gilroy, Hollister. They want to go down that way. And I'm like, go east, baby. Go come to Contra Costa County, right? Come to Stanislaus County. You don't, and it's only an hour drive to San Francisco, right? So at the end of the day, you know, why move south when it's going to take you 2 hours to get to San Francisco, right? If you had to, that's what I love about, you know, Contra Costa County and calling this home for myself. But there's a lot of opportunity in Stockton. I helped a young, well, actually, I can't even say young at 72 years old, but he's buying his first house, 72 years old, Army veteran, Vietnam veteran, and he's buying his first home in Stockton for $260, right? So just because he's from San Jose, it doesn't mean he can't buy, you know what I mean? So we just have to educate them on what their dollar, how far it can go depending on what area and what market you're focusing in on. So then there's a third opportunity.
Richard, speaking about creativity, you know, I want to have Ben chime in real quick, and being that we have to be creative, you know, is there a transaction you can talk about in regards to being creative to just fit into today's market?
Well, they're all creative. I think they never stop being creative. I mean, we've got one right now where we found a property that it technically checks off all the boxes. It's all the windows are okay, the roof's okay, the floor's okay, the kitchen's okay, and it's financeable. However, it's like, you know, the ugliest one on the block. So we were able to finance prepaid repairs to a limit, right? Because the financing has to have a certain percentage, and Richard can talk more about that. But we're able to find, especially right now with the COVID crisis going on, we see sellers being a little more flexible in terms of what they want to give up. And we see buyers who are really, because they're short on savings, they're really willing to you know, take a leap of faith and say, okay, the seller's going to give me a credit to fix this, pay for my closing costs, repair this after escrow. And I see that as like coming together, you know, before, like, we're seeing buyers and sellers kind of going head to head. Right now in this time of crisis, we're seeing people, I need to sell for, you know, different reasons. And people are saying, I want to buy because I've been stuck in a tiny apartment with my 2 kids. I need to buy for these reasons. And they're saying, well, I don't like the house in these conditions, but I'll give you your price if you can deliver the house in this situation afterwards. And so we're seeing these people kind of come together in different ways that we weren't seeing before, not only because of the COVID crisis, but just because I think that as home ownership becomes something that becomes more desirable, and we're seeing older individuals who want to maybe get rid of a property that is going to be more work, we're seeing these Latino buyers being willing to take on more of a challenge. And that's, I think, is a great opportunity.
And what are your thoughts on that, Roger? Would you agree? Are you kind of seeing the same thing that Ben's seeing?
I do agree, yeah. So what I see, and that's actually on the report, I mean, Latinos are not scared of fixer-uppers. I mean, they will take it. They have a cousin, they have a brother that does this and that.
They did it themselves.
Yeah, as long as you can finance it, they'll take it. As long as it's solid, no foundation issues, nothing like that. I mean, it's a pretty good way to get into a house and stop renting. So stop throwing that money away.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I think the third opportunity, Michael, you know, to add to the opportunity of working with the Latino market is you as an individual have a lot of power and a lot of value because your network, it's not like you don't have to go out there and try to understand the Latino market. You are Latino, and in your network, you know other Latinos, right? So you really got to spend some time in there, touching base, educating, bringing up the conversation. And the other thing, one of the most fascinating things that happened to me being associated with NAHREP is that we now have a network that doesn't just rely on the Bay Area. Now I have a network in San Diego, LA, you know, Arizona, you know, all 50 states. If you need a representation in Puerto Rico and you need a beach property condo, I got NAHREP members that can help you out there. And I'm going to hook you up with the best of the best because at the end of the day, I know the presidents of those chapters. So there's another reason why you should step up in leadership because guess what? When those referrals do come in from out of state or you need them to go out of state, you're going to be working with the leaders in the community, the best of the best.
Yeah, and I think that's what's good about us. You know, when I go to conferences and see that, a lot of us look at us as being Latino, but then being Latino, Latinx, Hispanic, we know I'm Salvadorian, I'm not Mexican. You know what I mean? Like we get really specific, and it's good to see Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, Mexicans, you know, Guatemalans, Nicaraguenses, all just hang out and all have this mindset because all of us are different. And even a Latino from the Bay Area is different from a Latino in LA. It's different from a Latino in Florida and things of that nature. And I love when we all come together and have that ability to kind of share, even though we're within the same culture, the culture within the culture. You know, and I think that's what you're talking about is the people opportunity, you know. I can't I can't go to the Mission District or any Spanish place without people just instantly speaking Spanish to me. That's just what it is, you know. And people are like, do you deal with the Hispanic market? I'm like, I don't have no choice, man.
I don't know if they. That's funny.
I have the opposite problem.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I got the opposite problem. There's an interesting saying that I heard a long time ago from a very knowledgeable broker. His name is Jorge Cárcamo. And he said, the interesting thing about the Hispanic market is that, hold on, estamos, what is it? Hold on. Divididos por el frijol, pero unidos por el español. So even though we're uniquely different in that sense, the Spanish language ties us together. So we always have a commonality that we can come back to. And I think that's huge, especially like Richard says, when we're sharing referrals, man, that Spanish language is something that is huge for us.
And it's a connection.
And you're just more comfortable, right? You're comfortable, right? You're comfortable with somebody that has a story similar to you. You know what I mean? From an immigration standpoint to the way you were brought up to that struggle between, you know, being accepted, right? Like, you know, I'm really a mutt, right? I'm Mexican, Nicaraguan, but when I go to Mexico, they're like, you're a gringo. You know what I mean? When I go to Nicaragua, I'm a Mexican, right? And how many of us have experienced that, right? And so we're either not American enough or we're not Mexican enough or Nicaraguan, but you know what? I just label it, we're Latino. That's how we're complicated.
And that's where Roger comes into play, you know, about having these Spanish speaking events, because I don't know how many times I watch a boxing match, boxer speaks Spanish, he's all excited, and the interpreter comes and says, he did a great job, we can't wait for his next fight.
Well, no emotion at all.
Right? And you're making
none.
Right? Like that's why our sometimes how we interpret, sometimes we say things, it's better in our language, right, Roger? That's where you're coming to play. And it's just a differentness when you're able to get into that Spanish zone. Would you agree, Roger?
It's different. You can see it on people, like even in their body language. When I meet some new clients and we start talking in English, because sometimes we don't know. We just assume that someone doesn't speak Spanish. When you start talking Spanish, their whole body language, they just relax. They just share more. I experience that at open houses. Sometimes I go with clients, start talking to them in Spanish, just showing the house around. There's someone talking to the listing agent, and then you see us there walking, talking Spanish, and then they go outside, hey, ¿le puedo hablar un ratito? So that's pretty cool. Just the connections that you can do, just explain everything better. That's why I'm huge. So I want to say probably like 9% of my transactions are in Spanish.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to end you with this question. We just had a fabulous event with 3 great panelists last week. Felisa Mares, Grace Davis, Elena Out Loud, and our MC was Julian Morales. And the question I asked them was, what is it to you to be Latina? And I'm going to ask you guys the same question, but as far as Latino, for me, I personally like to identify with Latinx. And the reason I like to identify with Latinx, as you guys know, is that, you know, I want to accept everybody. You know, like, I don't even like labels. I want to be called Michael personally. But if you had to put a label on me, I'd rather go with Latinx. And it kind of goes back to Malcolm X mindset, right? Like, I am who I am. And our generation sometimes, even being Latino and Latina, because Latino's masculine, Latina's, you know, feminine, and things of that nature. For me, I identify as Latinx. And being that I saw the world, I was in the military, the Bay Area is so diverse. My best friends are Black. I got the godmother to my kid is white. My wife's Filipino. I'm an inclusive kind of guy. I love that. And I love being identified as that. And I love this platform that NAHREP has and being involved with different Latinx people. So for me, you know, I definitely identify with Latinx. I love that whole saying behind it. I know a lot of people get confused about it. Like, what does that mean? It just means I'm Latin. That's it. And it means a lot to me. But what about you guys? What does that Latino mean to you, Roger, when you hear that? Do you identify as a Latino or Hispanic, Mexicano? And if you do, what do you feel that represents you? Roger?
Roger froze up. You have to do that again.
Yeah, it's okay. Let's just go to Richard.
Oh yeah, Roger froze up. So let's go with Richard. Richard, you had mentioned that you identify Mexicano, Nicaragüense, all these different things. So tell me what it is for you, your representation of our culture.
You know, for me, being Latino, it's you know, family, right? You know, it's love. You know, our food. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we have different. I feel like I'm a chameleon, right? I have to learn how to adapt to all these different environments. Where, you know, if I have to put on a suit and I'm talking to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or if I'm talking to campesino, you know, that picks strawberries, right? Being Latino to me is being able to adapt to lots of different environments, because as we grew up, we had to try to fit in. And most of the time we didn't fit in. So that was a skill that we got to learn as a Latino as we grew up, because I had to learn how to be from the streets, but I also had to learn how to, you know, behave in the boardroom, right? So, you know, Latino is a very complex question, but for me, you know, it's family and love, man.
And what about you, Ben? I mean, definitely, I know you said that, you know, you don't have that problem. People don't look at you. It's like, hey, you look like you're a Latin guy. You probably, what do they usually identify you as?
I've gotten everything, man. I've gotten, you know, what are you like from Iran? What are you from Mexico? Where are you from? You from El Salvador? You know, I don't know. You know, being Latino, what my, I think, identity is rooted in. My parents are from Mexico, but I was born here. And that is what I love when people tell me that my parents are from El Salvador, but I was born here. My parents were Nicaraguenses, but I was born here. Because when I relate to people, we have a commonality between all of us. What's up, Roger? You're back. There's a commonality between the first generation here, and there's a commonality between our struggle and what we had to go through. Like Richard was saying, we had to, you know, navigate the streets. And then when we grew up, we got a job, we had to know how to navigate the, you know, like the corporate world. And we're also having to navigate how to be parents now, and how to navigate, like, oh, do your kids speak Spanish? And that's like a whole other world, right? Like their experience is going to be different from my experience, because everyone's going to be different. And so what is it to be Latin to me? I think we always go back to our food, our love, and our families. And I think that's what unites us. And as long as we keep those three things as in focus and as the most important priorities, I think we're always going to be okay.
Well, it's funny you say that, because sometimes, you know, we're all presidents, we're all in, you know, have different roles and leaders within our community. And it's so funny when you say family, because when I sometimes go to my mom and I'm like, Mom, I'm doing this and this, that, and the other, and she's like, that's great, son. How's the kids?
Yeah.
I'm not a Latin leader anymore. I'm Michael, the Latin child, you know. But,
yeah.
So I totally get it. So
she's like, when's the last time you called your brother?
I think Michael, when I think you know, you nailed it on the head, Ben, as well. is that, familia is honoring, our grandparents and their heritage and making sure that we pass down those stories and let them know why we identify as, I identify like Michael, American-born Latino, right? But at the same time, I never wanted to disrespect my family, my mom, my grandma, grandpa, the sacrifice that they paid, and all the civil rights leaders, even the founders in NAHREP, right? When they started this, you know what I mean? We went nationwide with it. What great leadership for them to pass this beautiful gift to us of learning how to operate a nonprofit, how to collaborate with other Latinos. I mean, my goodness, man, we have to never forget our heritage and honor the ones that came before us.
Yeah, and that's definitely me, first generation born here. But I served United States Navy, so obviously I definitely have a pride of being an American, and I identify as that. Served my country, served it well, and definitely. So Roger, now that you're back with us, welcome back. Talk to us about your identity and how that is to you, and how it helps you in your daily business.
Yeah, so being Latino, so for me especially, I came to this country 13 years ago. So I've been 12 years doing real estate. So actually real estate was my second job here. Started as doing transaction coordinating and doing short sales and all that fun stuff that we had back there. But just being Latino for me, it just gives me an opportunity to connect with people. On a personal level, just help them. It has helped me grow my business while at the same time it's really rewarding to hand out keys to a hardworking family that's been planning and just never own anything, and just having that satisfaction of just being there when they accomplish that goal. That was the conversation I was having with my wife yesterday. She usually goes with me to hand out keys. She loves doing that and just handing out their present and their key and just congratulating them and all that. So that's pretty cool. I always do I was having to do a video testimonial, not for marketing purposes, but just to inspire people like them, see people that they identify with, young people like the North we were talking about, older people. I have like a 63-year-old couple that bought their house in Vallejo last year. They did an awesome testimonial. So it's just really touching and just really rewarding. And being Latino, speaking Spanish, like Ben was saying, just unites people. Just wherever you go. So you can be in Europe and you hear someone talking in Spanish, you go, hey, so where you from? And just open the conversation there. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, definitely. Sorry, I'll edit that part out. But thank you guys for being a part of this. It was really, really cool to hear your guys' inspiration and and to hear each one of you guys' mindset in regards to that. So I want to encourage all our viewers, please join NAHREP San Ramon Valley chapter. $49 for the whole year. We're having some great live events. We'll have some great panelists just like this. We'll also bring in some top tier people as well to kind of mix it up. We have some exciting things to come. So thank you, Roger Lopez. We appreciate you for everything that you're doing and the knowledge you brought to us. Richard over in Silicon Valley, thank you so much for all the
Michael.
help you did. Yes.
Michael, one thing I want to bring up, it's kind of fresh in the news and it's kind of a current event. I know we've been talking about the housing report, but I think it's really important right now to also address some of the concerns we have in the community right now that are going through COVID-19 sacrifices, right? Like, I have someone on my board, her husband just got laid off, right? They closed their factory, right? So, there is help right now. And there's some big words being thrown around, like, people are so scared because they don't want to lose their houses. And as professionals in our industry, we have to make sure that we're giving them all the knowledge that they need. And right now, most GCs, government-sponsored enterprises, and lenders are working with clients to help them maybe skip a payment, right? Or 2 or 3 while we kind of navigate this health crisis, because it really was not brought upon them, right? It's not like they're lazy and they got fired and, they don't want to work. And so they all want to work. Latinos are hardworking people. And we have to let them know that these programs exist. There's words that are being thrown out there that are new to a lot of us, like forbearance. What does that mean? If I don't pay my mortgage right now, are they going to take away my house? We've heard that they've stopped foreclosures, but forbearance means that they're going to allow you to skip a payment, right? But it doesn't mean they've forgiven the payment, right? So the one thing that is being misinformed out there is that if you skip the payment today and you have to skip a payment next month, and then you have to do one on the third month, on the fourth month, you have to pay 4 mortgage payments, and that's not true. Most of the Fannie Mae, the government-sponsored enterprises, Freddie Mac, and most banks will work with you to maybe let you catch up over a period of time, maybe 36 months, where they increase your payment a couple $100 so that you can catch up on those other ones. So there's more information coming out on forbearance, but if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of our NAHREP members. You know, we know all the ins and outs of it, and by all means, it's not a bad thing. It's okay to get some help. A lot of people don't realize as of yesterday, real estate agents can actually apply for unemployment, and I can get that information out to you guys too if you guys don't already have it. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about forbearance and how we can help people stay in their homes and not have to worry about it right now.
And that's such a great point, Richard. You know, a little bit about myself. I was involved with the last crash. I had a NAGAM loan, and they modified me, and they called me up, Wells Fargo did, and they modified my loan, and they did it twice. They took principal off, and they took my interest rate off, and long story short, it took $150,000 off my principal balance when that crashed last year. I didn't have to pay when I was in the forbearance sort of situation. So yeah, I mean, like, I'm a product of it. It's to help save my house the last time around back in 07 and 09 when I was just stuck. I was in the housing business. My wife was in the car business, and we were stuck. And thank God that Wells Fargo called. So yeah, it sounds scary, but like you said, I've been through it. I know what forbearance is. I know what a loan modification is. Richard, you do too. So please, anyone that has questions, give us a shout. I'm on call tomorrow about forbearance with somebody to help them out as well. So that's such a great point to bring up or whatnot. But is there any other last points anyone wants to bring up before we close out the show?
I just want to say thank you, Michael, for stepping up, and I wanted to express some gratitude to you for the wonderful leadership. Thank you for being uncomfortable. Same to you, Ben and Roger. At the end of the day, no one's been on a board before, at least not me. This has all been a huge learning experience, and I'm just grateful for NAHREP because I would have not met neither one of you guys. So thank you for being awesome, and thank you for welcoming me as part of your family as well.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Ben? Last minute?
You know, I'm just grateful that NAHREP initially, like from the get-go, has always had that foresight to be able to put reports together like this that really illustrates where we are as a community, where we are as a people, and that helps us as professionals to figure out and kind of navigate the waters, right? Like, this report is huge. It's telling us where the opportunities are, where the struggles are, and how we can resolve those problems for our markets. And so that's making not only our clients more successful, but it's making us more successful. And that's something that we really need, especially during times like this where we have national and global crises going on. We need some leadership. We need some guidance, because in many cases, we're first generation, we're first timers in this industry, and we need leadership to give us some sort of guiding path. And so I'm grateful to NAHREP to give us that information. I'm also grateful that you guys are on board and just being there as, you know, someone that I can lean on for support. So thank you guys as well.
And being that Latinos are very resourceful, Ben, I like your pocket square.
You like that? It's a dual purpose pocket square and mask right there, man.
Latinos were so resourceful.
Taking fashion to another level.
I like it.
That's right.
Your last minute words?
Just for me, just for people, there's a lot of something that I see this time around that we didn't have in the last recession is there's a lot of information out there. There's good information and there's misinformation. So just make sure you're going to a good source like this group of fine gentlemen here to get your questions answered. Don't go off any social media posts that will seem alarming, or just always look for the guy that's doing it good, has a good reputation, and just make sure that you're doing the best you can to stay afloat and keep your family healthy and safe.
Definitely. Well, again, thank you guys, and to all our members out there, just know that we're thinking of you. Definitely, I'm the president. Ben is the vice president as well, but we have a solid board of directors. I can't express how great they are, how much gratitude I have with them. If it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here. So it's definitely a team effort here, and definitely with the collaboration of individuals, members like Roger, and collaborating with presidents like Richard, We're able to get a lot of this stuff done. So please join us. $49. We promise you guys it's going to be beneficial. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. We're going to bring out some topics that have to do with things that are more tangible. We promise to bring out a positive message, and we hope to see you guys soon. So from all of us, thank you for joining us on Pan con Cafecito, and we'll definitely talk to you guys soon. You guys have a good day.
Welcome to NAHREP 2020 East Bay chapter.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, I need to be a part of NAHREP. It's never a no. If you follow these steps, in 6 months we can get you into the house.
Beautiful organization of Latinos.
Sure, we definitely want to bring more modern events, things that are more engaging, things that stick away from the name tag.